Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel for another video, and in this one we're covering the changes to how terrain works within what will be 11th edition of Warhammer 40,000. So let's get into it. Now, the first major change is terrain has been split into two types. You have terrain features and you have terrain areas. Now, terrain features are individual scenery pieces, so barricades, rock formations, ruins, that sort of thing. Basically anything detritus or anything like that you could encounter within your average battlefield. Terrain features will now what it says here in the article, which I will link in the description. Terrain features will always be placed on, or sometimes used to denote of, the edge of a terrain area. Several key areas now allow for a wider variety of terrain features on the battlefield and a greater degree of interaction with terrain than before. A terrain area is the footprint on the battlefield under the effects of that scenery, and these effects are undergoing some big changes compared with the current edition or 10th edition. Now, chief amongst these changes is the addition of the hidden rule. So infantry, beast and swarm models inside a terrain area can be hidden as long as their unit didn't shoot in the current or preceding player turn. And if they start in the terrain area, they'll be hidden at the start of the game. Whilst hidden, a model is only visible to enemy units within their detection range, usually about 15 inches. So you can deploy your models a lot more freely without worrying about first turn barrage. So objective markers within home bases tend to be put in terrain areas to get a buff to armor saves. This, which is also changing in 11th, because terrain cover now makes you harder to hit rather than increasing your armor save. So another change is most terrain is obscuring, much as it is today. Obscuring terrain areas cannot be seen entirely through, so even large models and big units can use sections of terrain to avoid enemy fire. Infantry, beasts and swarm units in terrain areas also gain the benefit of cover, which, as I outlined within 11th edition, gives your opponent a -1 to their ballistic skill stat, so essentially -1, rather than the +1 bonus to armor saves. So instead of being more durable, you're harder to hit, which in a way sort of makes a bit more sense. I mean, after all, the mantra is you can't hit what you can't see. And this is demonstrated in a graphic in the article. Another change is the terrain layouts. Recommended terrain layout. So it may well herald the end of the L-shaped terrain features that seem to dominate 10th edition tabletop boards. And again, this is explained with graphics within the article. So it seems each battle type or each scenario has its own recommended terrain layout. So in a way, depending on what type of battle you'd be playing, in theory, the board should be different every time with terrain, which presents more strategic opportunity and keeps things interesting in essence. And you also have the thing that it's not just about 2D blueprint of terrain. Height plays a factor, so yes, big buildings can screen big things. In fact, it mentions here, if you have the towering keyword, you can take advantage of something called the plunging fire rule. which essentially gives you a +1 to your ballistic skill, effectively neutralising the cover benefits, which would be a thing if you're in a multiple stories tall Imperial Knight. You're going to be looking down at the unit that's in cover, so the cover's kind of pointless. And it mentions specifically here, models with the towering keyword, a la Imperial Knights, get to unleash plunging fire, on groundable units within 12 inches. And then it just ends with plugging the fact that it's going to be selling specific terrain setups, but it does give some dimensional layouts here for the standard mission layout. So 4 large rectangular pieces, so 7 inches by 11.5 inches, 2 large right angle pieces, 8 by 11.5 inches, 4 medium rectangles, 6 by 4, 2 long lines, 10 by 2.5, and 4 short lines, 6 by 2. So yeah, basically it's a big old spice up of how battlefields will look and how terrain is interacted with, presenting a lot of new potential strategic utility war games within 11th edition, and that about concludes it. So how do you feel about these proposed changes to, well, these not proposed, actual changes to the terrain rules coming in 11th? As always, let me know in the comments and I shall catch you guys in the next video. Sayonara.